And, you know, all issues are our issues. And, you know, this is, I'm speechless, you know what I mean? And, you know what's crazy, Melanie, is my cousin, Darian, actually was working out with the young lady's sister yesterday.
Her aunt.
Her aunt. And I got to get on the phone with her, you know, and the support system of the family and the things that the family is now having to do is also, I think, just as, you know, needs just as much attention, you know. But it's just crazy how things come into full circle.
Absolutely. I was actually informed by her aunt, Stella, this morning that you did have a conversation with her last night. So thank you for that, Dame. I didn't even know the connection of your cousin going to the gym that Latte's aunt owns, which is really cool. All right. Do we have here that we should be starting with, Dame, on your side? Was Senator Melton coming to join us as well?
He said he was.
He said he's coming through.
So should we wait?
Whatever. This is your thing. You know, I'm just showing up. My platform is your platform. I'm just a guest. So however you want to move forward, it's yours. And what's up, everybody? I see Taj. I see the Bishop. I see Dennis. I see everybody. How y'all doing?
Right. So let's just, tonight we contacted Dame to have an emergency town hall meeting concerning what's going on over here on the east side with respects to my mentee, Taisha Ashley Williams, also known as Latte. I believe that gun violence is a human right.
Can you get on this
human
Zoom?
Right,
it's right now.
and it threatens fundamentals of our human rights in general.
Oh, okay.
So even though to some people this might be just another story in the news, for us, okay, we're looking at this as a community issue, a global issue, and so I did call Dave and ask him to host this emergency town hall meeting just to address certain things, to put it out there, to bring some social awareness on this and the impact, to use this use both our platforms and all our platforms to just try to see how we can bring this family closer.
Some other things. I just want to see if we can jump on.
Respects to gun violence, 500 people a day die from gun violence. 500 people a day. 44% of firearms related deaths related to firearms, 44% of it is homicides. So this is something that affects people at one point or another, whether they hear a story about it or they're indirectly or directly affected by it. This is a global issue. It has hit home for us, and so that's why we decided to have this emergency town hall meeting. So thank you, Dave. Let's do quick introductions. I know my introductions usually are very long. We have a very small group tonight, which is good, so we can get this rolling quicker. Just introduce yourself, your affiliation to the group, and if you knew Latte or not, and then we'll go right into some talking points that I want to get into. Bishop.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. I'm happy to be here. I represent part of the think tank that Mr. Dash brings together on different occasions. Worked with Dr. Dennis, Taj, and yourself, Melody, and Senator Eddie Melton. But as we all know, gun violence affects our neighborhoods. I think I did not know Latte personally, but being a pastor and a bishop, we hear about the tragedies. When I came home, the first phone call I got was while in the taxi, was that someone had shot at a young man in his car when he had his 3 young children. And that's what I had to deal with on the taxi on the way home. So I think it's something that is plaguing our nation. I also believe that we can come up with solutions because it affects lives and it affects other people's future, especially the little children who are left behind.
Totally agree.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I totally agree with you. Thank you for sharing.
Can I introduce myself?
Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
My name is Damon Dash, and the reason why I think this is important because this is a pattern, and I think we're programmed to think it's all right for us as people to be killing each other, celebrating it, to make us think we're tougher just because we're scared. And I think we're being manipulated into having problems with each other and thinking that things that are usually trauma for the average person are normal, and having to internalize all that is just all strategic. And I just think the narrative has to change, and the way it changes is the reason why I have everyone in this think tank that the bishop spoke about is because our perspective on religion makes us think we should be fighting each other. Our perspective on education forces us to fight each other. Our perspectives on therapy force us to think it's all right to deal with trauma and to fight each other. But at the end of the day, it's never all right to kill your brother or your sister under any circumstance. It should not be celebrated. It should not be looked at as tough. And the narrative has to change. Us hurting each other should never be celebrated in any way, shape, or form. It should be looked at as disgusting. And the collateral damage that happens is innocent, beautiful people end up hurt. And children end up losing parents and don't know why, and they don't deserve that. And it's just, this is the purpose of this conversation, but the only way to change it is for us to change the narrative, to change every part, from the politics to the religion, or what you think of religion, to the education, and to what is recognized as trauma. And I think it has to be cool to fix these things. It has to be corny to look the other way. And that's the purpose of me being here.
We have Melanie from Texas, who is actually my twin sister. She's up next. All right, I'll have my camera on mute. Hi, my name is Melanie Susano. I'm Melody's twin sister. I'm also Cassandra Williams' sister, who was Latte's very close friend. I didn't meet Latte personally. I spoke to her over the phone, I think, once or twice, but I just heard so many beautiful things about her from my sister. And when I heard the news, I became involved and just helped my sister as much as possible spread the word on social media with her GoFundMe and the petition and so on and so forth. Ironically, however, I am an activist in my own right, and I had been drafting a master list of gun violence organizations, being that had been a lot of the retaliatory argument towards Black Lives Matter, is that what about black on black crime? So I'm actively working on that and starting an Instagram page soon, where we can go to one place and find some more resources to help us become more aware about what is happening and what we are doing, because I think there is no media and there's no attention put forth on that in and of itself. I think the narrative is that we don't care about our communities and we don't want to do anything. And so I think we also need to change that as well. Really highlight a lot of these organizations that are there every day, calling in these victims, their families, and the people in the gangs and so on and so forth that are about 0.9% of our community who are community workers. It's very unfortunate. So that's what I have been doing, and continuously helping Cassandra and Latte's family organize with the march and doing a lot of the social media stuff. So that's my take on it. Definitely something that needs to be spoken about more readily in our communities. Dame touched on something. We normalize and we glorify violence, amongst Black and brown people, from beating our children to even verbally abusing each other, retaliatory comments to each other. It's something that is very normal. It's the go-to whenever someone is disrespecting you or so on and so forth. So I think there are some things that we can help tackle and change within us, as well as really being there for the organizations that do exist that are really readily helping to fight the gun violence in our communities. Thank you. Wheatley Beauty.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Dana. I'm Latte's cousin-in-law. So as we all know, this is a very unfortunate situation. Her sister D'Angela was actually supposed to be here right now. She service at all. I've known Latte for about 5 to 6 years now, and from the day I've met her, I've loved her. She's been nothing but positive energy. She's like a ray of sunshine in everyone's light and the community overall. You know, she was always the type of individual to always try to push a person to their full potential. She was just an amazing individual. And this is a very unfortunate situation that unfortunately a lot of people have to deal with. But we cannot have this situation just bypass. We have to do something about it. This is, you know, something that is like truly. Wait, hold on, sorry.
Unfortunate. And give it that the mic, Beauty. I'm gonna come back to you, okay? We also have in the room Boogie is what we call him, who is Latte equipment. Could you just introduce yourself? They are the night of the we'll talk to you in a second.
You breaking up. I can't hear you.
For the team, so we all know who you are.
Okay. Hello everybody. My name is Boogie. Well, my name is Ray. My name is Ray. I was Latte's boyfriend. For the past almost, I want to say, going on 2 years, me and Latte been together every day. Like, we built a bond. I knew Latte all my life, to be honest with you, but for the last 2 years, we've been together inseparable for the last 2 years, you know. We did everything together, like literally everything, up until the last few moments of our life, you know what I'm saying? Like, we was together. She was a great person. Like, I'm talking about, she did everything. She was a hustler. She if it was $1 to be made, it was her to be making it. So like, it wasn't nothing that she didn't do. Physically, if she couldn't do it, I was there to do it for her. But everything that she was capable of doing, she would do. Like, she painted. She thought she was singing. She did, you know, pretty much everything. So it's gonna be this guy. It really do gotta stop, you know. So that's why I'm.
And I just want to tell you, bro, you know, I've been there before, exactly there, you know, and it's something that, as a man, I could never prepare for, you know. And I think the way you carrying it, I was a hot mess in this moment when I was going through it. And it's similar, what I'm hearing you say is because it sounds like you guys were ever able to celebrate your love while y'all were alive. And that's how I felt. And also, you know, that love doesn't go in vain, because then it also shows you how to recognize other love. You know what I mean? But the bottom line is, no matter what, mine is always with me. You know, my girl right now understands and respects the connection I have with Aaliyah. And I feel her, you know, and it's crazy when people that don't deserve it get it. You got to wonder why. And it's only so other people can learn from it, you know? It's the only reason it could be that happens, you know, and that's why we're gonna make sure it doesn't happen in vain. Something got to give here, you know. But I'm giving you good energy because it's a relatable feeling and it's unthinkable, bro. You know, and you being strong, bro. I'm telling you, I couldn't even say her name for about two months, you know. So thanks for being there for the family and being strong, you know, and definitely make time for yourself to heal, you know.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jane. Cassandra, are you available?
Hi, everybody. Hold on 1 second. So my name is Cassandra Williams. I was a great friend of Taisha. My son was also her godson. So we were family with Latte. We had our own little family going on. This is very tragic. I'm not from Hempstead. I'm from Suffolk County. I'm from Winehenge, New York. I'm 25 years old as of this year. I've been experiencing my family being killed for the past 10 years. Since I was young, I've been going to funerals. So when they took Latte from us, it kind of like sparked something in me. I was very, very upset. I mean, I had no words for her loss. I couldn't even breathe. I felt like I was sick to my stomach. I just feel like we need to start taking our communities back. I'm tired of losing friends, family. I have a 1-year-old black son. I don't know what his future entails, but I can't allow him to grow up in a community where his own godmother, who was saving lives, was taken from him. How am I supposed to explain that to him? What am I supposed to tell him? What did I do to help your godmother? Like, this is not fair. Like, I want to take a stand. I want to get the guns off the streets. I want to start nonprofits. I want to give back to the community of Hempstead because that was just uncalled for. And something has to be done, and we have to start with our kids. We got to take these children off the street.
Thank you so much. By the way, my baby teacher introduced me to Latte, and you know, she had been trying to Latte to me for a while to mentor her. I have a lot of mentors, so I wasn't taking on any mentoring at the time, and Cassandra just kept egging me on, like take Latte, and so Latte and I finally connected, and I kind of put her on a series of tests to see how serious she was. So I'm like, go do the research on X, Y, Z and let me know what you come up with. Because at the time, I just really didn't have the time to take on anyone else. I was like, look, if she's serious, I'm going to give her 3 tests. And if she passes them, I'll take her on. She did. I gave her a research project to do on nonprofits because she came to me as well, wanting to do a nonprofit. By the way, I put Taj on, who's also a therapist, to support us. And I know that we're taking the mental health approach tonight. But since this is Taj, we Taj that added support. But you know, I didn't pass it, and so I had no choice but to take her on, and I fell in love with her. And I didn't get enough time with her, and I just keep, you know, taking my moments when I get something left. So, Lord Father, what was the reason? My story, and I'm finding out more and more every day that this was, that I'm being lined up to prepare for this so that we pick up. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm going to go as hard as I can. But my baby said, what I want to do to me for exposing me to Latte. Let's go to Isis. Isis is actually Latte's blood. That's right. The body here for the family's behalf. And also still point preparing and stabilize Latte's son. So it's just a lot. Isis. Go ahead, Isis.
Hey everyone, my name is Isis. Like you said, I am Ashley's cousin. This is difficult, so I'm sorry if I have to pause. I wrote 2 pages worth of stuff, but
That's fine.
you know, it's all in the heart, so you can't fake what's real. I am 25 years old, and I've not known a life without her. She, if you know Ashley, you know she's a beautiful person. She sees the light in everyone. Like was said, and what happened on August 1st was just a senseless act that turned my family upside down. I don't know a life without her, and as selfish as it sounds, as I've never thought of a life without her. A big part of us has been taken away due to something so reckless and so selfish. And I just really hope that there is change in communities. No parent should ever bury their child. No child should ever witness their parent being put in a casket and etc. And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity, and during these really difficult times we are overwhelmed with love and support, and I want to emphasize how appreciative we are, and the diligence that is being put forth is not going unnoticed. So thank you very much. I can keep going on and on about her, but first and foremost I want to announce how thankful we are to have all of you and to keep her name and her spirit alive, because again, this was not supposed to happen. She's a 28-year-old beautiful mother, daughter, cousin, and our lives are upside down right now.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining us. And I hope that this town hall meeting also empowers you to stay motivated. And I'm pretty sure it'll be a part of your healing process.
Absolutely.
Okay? For sure. Dennis, part of.
How you doing, Melody?
Hi.
I don't think we've ever shared the same. We shared this with one another, but I'm also a twin.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm also a twin.
Okay, twin club.
Yeah. This is one of the more somber town hall meetings that I've been part of. Primarily because it was another young person taken away senseless, but it was also a female being taken away too, and that hurts because there was always pretty much a code on the street, which was no kids, no women, and to see so many women being taken off the street with senseless violence is really, really disheartening. I'm Dennis McKeezy. I've been in education for almost 30 years. Recently, I started an organization called OSG, All School Grounds, where I get principals, school principals from all across the country together weekly for meetings to discuss issues that are not only the school but the community as a whole. When you're talking about gun violence, it's one of those social problems that are, they're a package deal. You can't deal with it solely through therapy. You can't deal with it solely through religion. You can't deal with it solely through politics. And so it's important that I bring the education aspect to this conversation as well, because some of the bigger problems why I think our communities are is because of our educational system. Dane Dash and I have talked about it. Taj has been part of this conversation. Bishop has been part of it. Melanie, and one of the most important things in terms of a discussion is that we can no longer eliminate education and what's happening in the school as possible causes and reasons for some of this violence. One of the hardest things to do is getting guns off the street. The guns are there, but the one thing I think we can do a better job of, especially in the educational system, is to get smarter people on the street that are not willing to pick up a gun to solve every issue and things like that. So, throughout this town hall, I'm definitely willing to discuss some of the issues I think is happening in schools that may be causing some of these problems. Because when you're talking about, a poverty mindset, quite a bit of that starts in people not understanding the importance of a quality education and things like that. So that's it for me for now. But we definitely are here to celebrate the life of Latte, and hopefully we can take something away from here that we can get into these schools and we can get into these communities and really help make the changes that are necessary.
So can I say something to that? So again, my issue is that we're born into an environment, we are programmed through religion, through education, through not getting the therapy and recognizing our trauma, to where strategically it's all right for us.
Have another translation for his name. Doesn't make a difference what language you speak. Everyone calls the first man Adam. The issue comes in when it comes into the Messiah's name or Christ. We're taught that Messiah's name is Jesus. But when you do a study on the name Jesus is an anglicized name. And anglicized means to make form in English and a characteristic according to an English person. But the Messiah was an African. The Messiah was an African for the simple fact and reason we are told where he was born. He was born in Bethlehem. There is no continent called the Middle East. If you could say Bethlehem, then you truly could say Yahshua. What no one takes into account is that they gave Christ an English name, but they never changed the name where he was born, Bethlehem. They never changed the place where he was raised, Nazareth. They never changed where he ministered, the Sea of Galilee. Because if you go around renaming places, you can never find them. But the thing is, this was part of the process, once again, of causing people to belittle themselves. And what we see taking place on the street is a whole culture of how to be cool and how people redefine it. When we talk about the gun violence, and the gun violence is, you have two types of gun owners. You have gun owners who feel that it's their right to own guns. Then you have people who own guns because they feel as if they have the power to enforce what they want on the street and to take someone's life. I believe that whenever you speak truth, it awakens somebody's spirit. Whenever you speak truth, it forces them to recognize who they are. I was speaking to people from our congregation, and it is said that blacks only make up 13% of the American population. If we only make up 13%, look how much influence we've had. We only make up 13%, but we've already had a president. We only make up 13%, but yet we motivate and curate American culture. I mean, 80% of all American culture comes from the inner city, comes from the inner community. They say we only make up 13%, but look at the influence we have. Now what we have to do, we have to redefine ourselves as the creator. The creator, Yahweh, means I am that I am. We have to redefine ourselves as he defines us. The problem is, part of the problem is when black and brown people go to their pastors looking for answers. You shouldn't go to your pastors. You should go to the scriptures. You should go to the Hebrew. You should go to the Greek. You should go to history. Because all of these things are not hidden. All of these things are there. It doesn't make a difference what anybody says. You don't need to go to college to learn scripture because you have to scripture college exists. So the thing is about educating people. Now, so I commend what Dr. Dennis is saying when it comes to education, because we need to re-educate the street, but we also need to re-educate the church. And when it comes to the Christian church, it's all about nationalism. That's why you have the Catholic Church. That's why you have the Church of England. That's why you have the Lutheran Church. That's how come you have the Russian Orthodox Church. That's how come you have the Greek Orthodox Church. Usually before you even hear church, you hear the nationality before the church. But none of that speaks to the historical fact that the Messiah of the Bible was very explicit. He had hair of wool. His skin was skin of bronze, not brass. The King James Version puts in there. But this causes people to recognize who they are and who they are called to be. Once again, my ministry is filled with all types of people, all different ethnic groups, all different complexions, because I believe when you speak the truth pulls people. But once again, what is it doing? It's re-educating people. Majority of people in my ministry, of the women, 80% have either been raped or molested. Of the men in my ministry, over 75% come from drug dealers or gang members. All of these people now, half of them have their master's degree. Definitely 80%, 90% have their college degree. It just shows when you re-educate someone, especially on the spiritual level, it gives them a new life. It gives them a new insight. And when you begin to tell people that you've been lied to, it produces a fight within. And I believe our only hope is to take back our community. And we have to take it back in faith. We have to take it back in spirit. We have to take it back in education. We have to take it back in building jobs. We have to take it back in building brother and sisterhood again in the neighborhood. I was born in 1966. And you knew who sold hot stuff in the neighborhood, but you also knew you couldn't bring harm to somebody because you knew their grandmother, you knew their mother. And I believe this sense of community has to be bought into again, and it will be bought into again. We often hear about immigrants who come to America and they build together and they live together, but that's also the story of Black Americans. My family moved up to the north from the south by everybody staying with an aunt, everybody staying with an uncle, you know, and so little by little they began to build. And I believe it, not just believe it, I know it in my heart. We have to come up with the solution. We have to come up with the solution for the gun violence, but in so doing, we change the narrative. I also believe that someone needs to tell Latte's story, because we have people who are listening who don't know.
Well, I definitely wanted to do a movie and a doc, and I definitely wanted to make sure that, you know, once you know you're responsible, that Latte's child is always going to be all right, you know. So, you know, he got thrown into my family. For some reason, my family was hanging out with your family, been hanging out with your family, I'm working out, and there's a reason. So this will not go in vain.
I had no idea that you were even connected to Latte's family, James.
I didn't either.
How that circle just comes back around, which means that, you know, we're heading in the right direction to make sure that things just get on point for her.
But I would like to tell her story. I would like the doc, the movie, the whole nine, and also the story of the family. Because there has to be some accountability here to see what this does to people that don't deserve it. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
To add on that, again, ironically, I have a friend in the dance community who shared the GoFundMe, and then his cousin DM'd him and said, "Oh, that's my cousin on my father's side." So it just goes to show, like, how more connected we think we are than we could possibly even imagine.
We're all family. That's what it is. No matter what, in some way, shape, or form, we're connected. And that's why we got to stop hurting each other. We hurting our brothers and sisters, but we don't hurt them. You know, and that's the thing. If you think God is a different color, maybe that's in your brain why you won't do nothing to them. Why you won't hit your oppressor and you want to hit the people that ain't doing nothing to you. You know, I think it's a strategic plan. I think it's brilliant. So if I was scared of strong people, I'd say, look, let me make them fight each other instead of having fighting me. How do we do that? First of all, they need to be scared of me. So I'll make them think I'm God. I'll make them think I'm the plug. I'll educate them a certain way so that they think winning is being controlled. Being a slave without telling you you are. All that stuff internalizes, whether you know it or not, it's unconscious trauma. What I wanted to ask Taj is, how do these things, these lies that we're given, how does it affect us? And how do we untie the lies? It can't happen overnight, but how do we do this? How do we make it uncool to be hitting your brother? How do we do that?
I'm going to introduce myself real quick. Like I said, I'm Todd. Most of the people here. Rest in peace to Latte and everybody else, you know, that has been victims of, you know, this type of violence. But I'm a mental health professional. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I specialize in trauma. I'm currently receiving my doctorate in clinical psychology. I'm also from the streets of Los Angeles, and I grew up in the gang culture where I participated in the gang culture. I was also a victim of the gang culture, so I've been on both sides of this conversation. And I feel like there has to be a very broad perspective on what's going on. We're dealing with trauma on both sides of it. Okay, you know, understanding why these things happen is very essential to addressing them. Okay, from both sides of the equation. Okay, when you're talking about, you know, this violence that's been going on for years and years, you know, not only, you know, the victims, of course, you know, and their families that have lost somebody are dealing with this trauma. A lot of the times, the people that are committing these things are also dealing with trauma. They've lost somebody. They're upset. They're mad. They don't know how to deal with their emotions correctly. You know what I mean? And talk. You get what I'm saying? And to ignore that aspect of it, not to say we shouldn't focus on the victims, because we should, all rip. But we have to address both sides of the equation, because the people that are committing these crimes are also going through trauma, and we have to address their trauma so that we can stop this from happening.
Right.
You know, because
so what Todd is speaking to is the holistic approach to dealing with the crisis right now. And that's making sure that we look at things from all angles, and we just don't connect with one side, but we trying to discover and make discoveries on all sides so that we can be very solution-based to minimize the continuation of perpetrated violence.
Absolutely, and it also comes with, lately I've been hearing this thing about there's no such thing as like black on black crime. And I'll tell you this, I disagree with that. And that is because when we kill each other, all right, it affects us differently than it affects other people, okay? We're historically oppressed. We're historically victims of systemic racism and things of that nature, lack of resources, broken families, imprisonments, and things like that. So when we take losses, it's double, okay? And the fact that we're taking these losses just living through life, we have to look at these crimes against each other differently. We can't just say, oh, you know what? It's not black on black crime. It's just crime, because that's not real. Okay? At the end of the day, these people that are dying, these are people that can possibly change the world. These are people that can participate in these types of conversations, or that can help these situations, and they're being taken out. And we need as many soldiers as possible in this war that we in, because, don't get it twisted. This is a war. You understand what I'm saying? So, and we need as many people as we can get, so we have to change our perspective on that, and understand that, again, our crimes against each other are different from anybody else's crimes against each other. And I'm just keeping it a buck,
But Taj, but why is it that we feel so comfortable hurting each other, but we don't, and I'm not advising it, but why we don't never hit them? We just hit each other. Why?
Because this all goes to post-traumatic slave syndrome. This goes back to way back then, when we've been programmed to fear the powers that be. And this gets passed on through generationally through families, consciously and unconsciously, okay? The other thing is that lack of empathy. We're dealing with so much pain every single day that it's, that we're not even thinking about what we're doing to somebody else. The empathy is just gone. So as somebody who's been on both sides of, again, of this situation, I'm telling you, when somebody's committing these crimes, they're not thinking about what their actions are affecting the other person or the family. They're not thinking about that. And these are the things that we have to bring to light. And this is why we have to talk. That's why I go into the streets. I go to Compton. I go to my communities and my neighborhoods, and I talk to the people that's in the streets, whether they gang members or they moving weight or whatever the situation is, because they have to be aware of the damage that's being done from an empathetic level.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a whole twisted mentality that needs to happen.
So
I think what you're saying, Taj, is to look for solution-based programming that would help and support in building empathy on all sides. And that will make people compelled or more compassionate, if you will, to kind of either minimize this kind of violence or at least to come forward and to talk about, listen, I mean, I was on a call earlier and someone, was telling me it was an accident. And I'm just like, hearing the words, it's an accident, is not enough.
At all.
It's not enough.
not at all.
At all.
You see, my thing is, we're so traumatized that the only thing that affects us is our escapes. So, music, we listen to music, that becomes our influence. Movies, we look at movies, that becomes our influence. What I do know is that I learned how to sell drugs in school. I didn't know anything about selling drugs till I went to high school and I met my friends there. And the reason why I chose that life in that moment is because the drug dealers were just cooler and had more things than the principal. Now, Dennis, and again, also the things I felt I was being taught weren't going to help me. And then as an adult, I was like, no one taught me how to pay taxes, pass a law, farm, health, or any of those things. And I think that is also a big problem, is when you come someplace and they say, yo, you're only successful unless you go to school and go to college, and unless you understand what I'm saying, you actually should take a pill, you have a problem. And I think that also makes us and gives us anxiety to where we're like, yo, we can't live in this world, let's just do it another way because that's all we got left. Dennis is a principal that represents 90 principals. Dennis, on the education level, this is my experience. How do you see we change this, and what do we do from here just on the education level? Because a lot of the kids, from what I'm understanding, leave their homes to go to school to get away from the trauma. They look at school as an escape, and now there's no school. So what the kids going to do now? And what can we do? Because we have a future problem if we don't deal with the education. Because now, for the next year and a half, it's going to be hard to get a kid to go to school because he's risking his life, or to pay attention at home in front of a computer when no one's actually making him. How do we do that? What do we do there, Dennis?
Yeah, so the thing, one of the things I would say, I would, start with is making sure that we give the direct message to children, to young people, is that finishing your education is important. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, it's important because you completed something. Two, it's important because when you look currently at what's happening in the jail, right? So in just a couple of years ago, they did a study, and 75% of the inmates in state prisons don't have a high school diploma. 59 to almost 60-something% of them in the federal prisons don't have a high school diploma. I'm not about career paths and what you do afterwards. But what you got to keep in mind right now, just to show you that there is a parallel between this. In New York City, 35 to 40% of the kids are proficient. That means when they take those standardized tests, 35 to 40% of them are proficient, which means 60% of them aren't.
Right.
But
that's 60% that aren't. There is a strong likelihood that they're going to turn to the streets, they're going to turn to crime, they're going to turn to violence.
But Dennis, isn't the reason why, now I consider myself a pretty intelligent guy, and I got my GED. The reason why was because I didn't like the way I was being taught. I felt they were wasting my time. So a lot of the reasons why a kid will turn away from education is because they don't like the way they're being educated. And a lot of the education that's...
I got you, Dane, but what I'm saying is that I also, too, didn't always like how education was taught. But I feel like in terms of every step that I've taken from 6th grade, graduating from middle school, graduating from high school, just continue to propel me into the next thing. Then got my
But you're a different kind of guy.
Did my master's degree. But then now working towards my doctorate.
But Dennis, you're a different kind of guy though. Like I couldn't sit in a room and be taught that way and be brilliant. Certain people can.
Right. So Dane, I think what he's saying is that even though a lot of the material and school reform still has to take place, for him and for a lot of us, because I also have a master's degree as well, there's a means to an end, which means that you should still focus on it. So a lot of the stuff that I was taught that I never used was fine. Yes, it was probably a waste of my time because it came with the journey.
But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying is
there was a point where when I did go to at least college, and you need your high school diploma to make it to college, you were in fact able to then specialize. And for me, psychology, mental health was my specialty. And when I got to college, because I wasn't going to college either. So what I'm saying is once I got to college and I was exposed to some of that information that was helpful, then it nurtured me in a way where it allowed me to eat the meat and spit out the bones.
I don't think you're understanding my point. I understand what education can do for people, but most people just aren't built for it. That's what I'm saying. So this language you're speaking, if you speak to someone else that's not wanting to do what you're saying, they don't want it, that just becomes Charlie Brown, womp, 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 womp. It's not a solution. My thing is, how do you engage children in an education that they feel will keep them like, this is worth it? Because as a child, I was like, I don't think it's going to be worth it. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying this is the problem. Unless someone's speaking this language of understanding what a PhD and the discipline of it will do for you. And a lot of people actually, like Taj, they had to go through trauma to realize they needed that discipline. People don't want that. They want to hear it different.
Interject.
It does not work.
Quickly, I just wanted to interject. And Melody had a good point. Obviously, she's my sister, so I know. When we were growing up, I was the girl who was in school, and Melody had.
She was actually a geek. She was a nerd.
I was a nerd, and Melody didn't care for education much. But what I was
in the street. I was in the street.
Yeah, she was in the streets. She was in the streets. What I will say is, I think it calls into question two issues. The first thing is influence, right? Who are the people around us that are influencing us to seek more? And for Melody and myself, that influence was in our foster mother, right? Our foster mother taught us the importance of an education, not just to blindly listen to whatever it is that we're being taught, but to seek out knowledge in general and to cultivate that knowledge to then use that for whatever it is that we decide to do in the future. Granted, even that I got a degree in one thing and I ended up pursuing creative arts. I'm a professional dancer. I got a degree in clinical laboratory science. But at the end of the day, my journey to want to seek knowledge, and that was what continued to propel me in the future. And I'm sure that same thing that was instilled in Melody, as much as she hated the education system and education in general, is what helped push her. So
I think trauma helped push her. I think trauma is what made her change her life.
I'm sorry, Dame, I didn't hear what you said.
I was saying I think what made Melanie go to education was trauma. Just like some people go to religion because of trauma.
But it was also the influence of our foster parent.
Right.
And I'll say this because what I find is that a lot of kids who are from poor neighborhoods, they don't really have that person behind them that is pushing them to cultivate their creativity or pushing them to do something more. Or, it's always a struggle. Like, I forget who was speaking about the poverty mindset, but when you survival mode and you working your 2 jobs, you just want your kids to shut the fuck up.
I just feel like if somebody like that was getting money said, yo, I'm opening up the school of how to get money, and you guaranteed you're going to get money, and you can't come with no guns, and you're going to get money. But as long as they know get money is at the end of it, I think that's how you get some. As bad as it sounds, I just know how I was influenced.
No, but I'll say
it's a very capitalist mindset. I think what it needs to be is let me help you find what it is that you love, so then you can cultivate that and then get a career. I just don't think that's what a kid on the street wants to hear. And I think in our neighborhood, it continues to take those resources away. They take away the after-school programs. They take away the sports programs. They take away the arts programs. They take away the music programs. They take away the science programs. They're not cultivating our curiosity and our creativity. And that's honestly the biggest issue in the education system is that. Right. And then in our homes, in the poor neighborhoods, I'm sorry, mom and daddy don't got time to really care about that because they need to make money so they can pay these bills. And then to add to that, there's no one else coming into the community to continuously reinforce this type of curiosity, this type of creativity. Because I'll tell you this, I volunteer a lot with a lot of youth organizations. And for the people there, white people, white saviors in there trying to save black and brown bodies. And in our communities, we are not going into these youth organizations.
They never.
This is definitely an issue.
They never show when we're helping each other. They don't show that. That's the narrative. So when I went to Africa, I saw orphanages ran by white people. Whenever we're being saved, we're always being saved by white people. And I just want you to understand something. Like when my mother died, the streets became my parents. And that's who I listened to. They were my biggest influence, the concrete. And whatever rules they told me to do, I didn't care what nobody else said. So I'm just trying to speak in a language that the people that need it understand, not the ones that are already converted. You understand what I'm saying? It's how do you talk to someone that thinks everything we're saying is nerdy and it gives them anxiety? What way do we talk to someone that they understand? The language I know is money.
I think what you're saying, Dame, is that there's a lack of bringing in resources to kids at a young age that may need alternative practices outside of the generalized educational system.
And I'm also saying that we're the only ones. I think it's intentional. You're right. I agree with you 100%. And what I'm saying, I think it's intentional that they don't give us that, and that we have to give it to. We have to do it ourselves. We have to do it ourselves. That's all I'm saying.
And that topic and a sub-solution to a lot of the madness that's going on that is connected to not just only gun violence, but to a lot of things as a whole. But I think that both perspectives, they're based on life experiences, and I think that they're both valid because they're your life experiences. It's your life experience and it's Melanie's. And me being more cultured, more from your side, I can relate to you more in terms of, like, guess what? If I was exposed to more entrepreneurship or more capitalism at a younger age, like how you were by the goons of the street, then perhaps I wouldn't have ran the streets as a teenager. But I also agree with Melanie in terms of it took a person, a role model in our lives to still instill in us the importance of going to chase and to pursue knowledge without a reasonable doubt to get to where we are in life.
But you still had to go through trauma to get there, though. It's how do you avoid the trauma?
It does lack that as well. Go ahead.
But trauma was a big part of you getting where you had to go. Why do we have to go through trauma to smarten up?
Because as a people, as
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure that out.
I agree, and I feel like as a black and brown and Afro-Latino community, it's a pre-existing condition. And I think Bishop will probably agree with me with that. We come into this world pre-exposed to trauma, pre-exposed to conditioning, pre-exposed to things that we shouldn't have to adhere to. And then it takes people who take a stand, who go against the grain, who discover these things that are contrary to how we should be conditioned to then be a pillar. And that's why Bishop probably goes around and probably gets a lot of backlash. Because he refuses to conform. He refuses to get with it.
If I could just
Go ahead, Dennis.
I'm sorry. Quick. Now, you know, we're talking about a lot of communication, okay? And my personal belief is that at the end of the day, we start communicating to these people earlier in life, okay? I'm going to speak on myself, for example, all right? Nobody went to school in my family. Nobody. I'm the first one to become a doctor or even get a master's, bachelor's, any of that. All right? Now, it was a foreign concept to me for a long time. But to my sons, it's not a foreign concept to them. You know why? Because they see me do it.
But look how cool you are.
But I'm saying, but again, it was me telling them, but it was also me showing them. So again, trauma is intergenerational. We transmit that. We don't have to tell them. It just happens. You get what I'm saying?
It's in your DNA.
The same thing.
It's in your DNA.
Same thing with education. Same thing with whatever messages we're trying to get to the younger generation. You get what I'm saying? We have to, just like we've normalized killing each other, we've normalized gang banging, we've normalized all these things. We have to start normalizing things like good education, pursuing entrepreneurship. We have to normalize it within.
We have to normalize us taking care of us instead of them taking care of us.
Within the home, though, it's
Yep.
like on a macro scale and micro scale. Like if it doesn't happen on a micro scale, it will not happen on a macro scale.
Right, Dane, he's not disputing your position.
I don't think he's disputing me at all.
And he's, I don't think anyone's disputing.
I don't think anyone's disputing me.
You know, like we're puppets on strings.
I don't think
sometimes.
anybody's disputing.
We become so conditioned that we become puppets on strings. So we're not disputing your position and cutting the string so that we can take care of our own.
So what are you disputing? What are you disputing that I'm saying?
Go ahead.
No, I'm asking. Like, why do I don't feel any dispute?
No, I'm not disputing.
No. I'm not saying that either. I'm just agreeing with you.
Oh,
I understand.
but
your
I don't
position.
feel no dispute. That's what
I see it.
I just want to do something. That's all. I want to do something. I don't want to talk about it. I want to do something.
Well, the doing comes in by what you laid as the groundwork. Because what I'm hearing is two things, right? First of all, I bring a lot of trauma. I bring trauma when I tell people the name Jesus doesn't exist. For people who say, hey, I got saved in that name, I got a miracle in that name, that's instant trauma. And then when you tell them all your life you've been praying to a man-made name, that brings trauma. But what happens? That's where you come in, Mr. Dash. It comes in where you have to be re-educated. And I believe what Mr. Dash is saying is that there's certain key things that we have to say to people who are not attracted to the normal form of education. Everyone gets re-educated. When you go into street life, you got to be re-educated. There's laws in the street. Hey, I'm a minister, but there's certain street corners, if I go on, if I preach, I'm getting killed. You know, there's certain places where you can't go and say certain things. It's going to bring a war. So there's a street education, then there's a formal education. I think what I'm hearing is that we have to all recognize people don't learn the same ways. Recognizing that people don't learn the same ways, we have some people that we have to communicate with. And Taj, he's got and Melody, awesome background where they have lived both lives. And living both lives, and you too, Mr. Dash, living both lives, we know what type of faith is needed to draw that person in to receive that new education. The people who give me the hardest time are the people who don't want to re-educate. And I don't see them any different, don't take the wrong way, I don't see them any different than racists. I have a problem when you have an educator telling me to respect education, but they don't respect religion education. They don't respect the history. So now that I see people who have a bias when it comes to education, and they have a bias when it comes to learning. And that's what we can't be afraid to break. We can't be afraid to break that everyone learns differently. What we're learning in medicine is that everybody's body is unique. You know, just because a particular medicine works for one person, another person will have a whole bunch of side effects. In the educational system we have right now, there are side effects. There are people who fall out of it. There are side effects. They don't fit into that mold. They don't fit to that group. We have to come up with a way of solution of how to reach them and to deal with them in their trauma. Like I said before, I cause trauma all the time. When you tell somebody his name ain't Jesus, when you tell somebody the name Jesus doesn't appear in anything Hebrew or Greek, the first comeback is, well, but I have miracles. Okay, if you have miracles, stop condemning other religions who say they have religions too, that you say believe in lies too. In other words, Christians have to deal with the fact that they tell lies. And they're white lies. They ain't black lies, they're white lies. But once you deal with those lies, it brings trauma. Can you imagine the trauma that your pastor lied to you? Can you imagine the trauma? I got saved to a Christmas story, and a Christmas story doesn't exist. I got saved on Easter Sunday, and no such thing as Easter Sunday. That brings trauma. But with the trauma comes re-education.
To speak what James is saying though has a lot of credence in the sense of I used to do marketing for the college I went to. All right, before I graduated. All right, I did marketing for them, and the marketing I did was geared towards the students that came from like the inner city, right, at the junior college level. All right, the way I would attract them to go to college is to tell them about all the money they could make going to school. Once I told them that, they was on. All right, I made more money getting good grades, all right, than some of my homies on the corner. All right, every semester that came, I was making 10 to 15 racks just to go to school for 3 months. Because my grades were so good, and they were just giving me grants, free money. There's money out here that they don't tell you about that you can make while going to school. This is how I would talk to the hustlers. This is how I talk to my homies who I have convinced to go to school and go get their degree, because they like, you know what? Is it gonna pay my bills? Can I do this, that, and the third? And they're like, hell yeah. And I would show them how they could do it. I would show them the grants, show them the scholarships, you know. And pretty soon they coming to me and saying, man, they just gave me 20 racks this month. I'm about to go start a business while I'm going to school.
Taj, it was the same thing for me. I didn't want to go to college because I felt like school wasn't for me.
But Melanie, I think Ray wanted to show something. Ray, Melanie, I think Ray was trying to show something. Ray, you was trying to show something?
Okay, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, this right here, Taylor, she drew this for me. This is me, if you look at me. Yeah. This is me, and I just wanted to show y'all that she was very talented. Like, I don't want to cut y'all off, and I understand what y'all talking about and everything, but like I said, college and everything, but everything that she went to college and she did go to high school, but everything that she known, that she was able to teach people, because trust me, my girl taught people. Like, I'm sitting on the side of her every day. She's talking to 10, 15 people, giving everybody advice. You know, like she's making sure that everybody is good to the point where sometimes I'm laying there like, yo, babe, what about me? You know? So she did, like I said, she taught herself. When she first started going on her spiritual path, she read 10 to 15 books a week. And that's, I'm talking about a week, every day. She on Amazon ordering new books. Every day I come downstairs kicking a book because new book at the door for her to read. So you can teach yourself. I mean, college is not that I ain't go to college, no. And I'm very well educated. And she went to college, but everything that she know that she was able to teach people, she learned on her own. So, and I just wanted to show you all this. I'll wait till my turn to talk, but I just want to show you.
Go ahead, do your thing, bro.
No, I think that we get so passionate, especially when Damon, Bishop, and Dennis and Taj and I get involved. We become so passionate because we're just really trying to just break a lot of the mold and to share different perspectives. So
I felt like his point was that school should be taught different. I thought he was validating what we were just saying.
no, yeah, I agree with you, Dame.
I just wanted you-
And again, Dame, I feel like what we have to do is we have to look at the school structure as a whole and really start to incorporate different avenues for people who don't mesh well with the one standard that they have available.
My point is, we cannot depend on the school system to do anything for us unless it's going to make us think unless we have a job, we're not going to win. My point is, I always want to know on these discussions what I can do. So I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to definitely do a doc and a movie. We're going to make that happen. That's going to happen. I know we're going to make sure that her child is all right. We're going to do that. And we're going to make sure that we look out for this family, that we don't look for help from anybody else, and that people see what it looks like when family looks out for family. I'm sick of asking them to help us. They're not going to help us.
Right.
They're not going to help us.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah.
You guys keep referring back to the school system. I'm going to be one to say that I lived in Wyandanch, but I grew up on the border where I just hit the border where I went to a great school in Dix Hills.
Yeah.
When I left Dix Hills every day, I went to Wyandanch to hang out. So I don't think we should necessarily be targeting schools. I think we need to directly hit the communities. I think we need to put money into the rec centers and art programs and, you know what I'm saying? I think we, first of all, Hempstead doesn't care about Hempstead. Let's just put that there. How can we show Hempstead that we care about Hempstead? That's how I feel. Like I want to say my school was amazing. My education was amazing. I went to one of the best schools in York, Dix Hills, Half Hollow Hills. But when I left Half Hollow Hills, I went to Wyandanch, where only sometimes 30% of Wyandanch graduates every year.
See, my problem is the recreation centers aren't run by us. My problem is, number one, no recreation center is run by us. We have to do our own recreation center. My thing is, we have to do our own. And don't think we're attacking education. We started with religion, then we went into the therapy of it, and now we're into the education. I just like to touch on all those things and then come up with a solution for them. But to me, it all starts with what we're born into, those patterns that they keep pushing on us that make us react and internalize and fight each other. I just feel like if we're occupied in doing something productive that we provide, even down to therapy, like I can only really talk to Taj because not most therapists can talk in my language, but he speaks my language. It's about translation. You know, and I just want to be clear of my agenda is, number one, we're going to make sure that her memory and everything she does, just sounds like the more I'm hearing about it, the more I'm mad that it happened, you know, and there's more people like this that we have to avoid. This can't happen no more. So we're going to bring awareness to it. We're going to make sure we show that love. And we're going to make sure that if there's any way we can stop this, my platform, that's what I'm going to use it for.
But, Dame, I want to tell you, damn, Goldie, I want to tell you, like, you say Hempstead, but it's not Hempstead. Like, It's the people in Hempstead. Like, Hempstead is a great time. Like, I'm not here. What happened to her was crazy. Listen, it's even worse on me because it happened in front of me. Like, a lot of people say they want to feel my pain. They don't know how to feel. I don't even know how to feel. I never witnessed anything like that ever. You know, I'm like, my girl, me talking to my girl every day for her last breath to tell me, Boogie, she want me to hold her because she don't even know what's going on. Like, it's the people in Hempstead. Like, that's what need to be targeted, not Hempstead, because Hempstead is a big place. It ain't just one thing that's going on, because it happens. You gotta.
And that's when we go back to how can we get Hempstead to care about Hempstead?
Right. So let's get into it. Yeah, I think Cassandra has a point, and I think actually you guys are saying something that's relevant, because what Cassandra is saying is, when is Hempstead going to care about Hempstead? But what she's meaning is, when are we going to get the finances from the local government?
It's not happening. It's not happening.
To then invest it into the people of Hempstead, so that the people of Hempstead have an outlet that is not violent.
And that was my point. My point.
But no money is gonna change.
Like, we also obviously, we want to be those people that receive those grants, because those grants are there. You get what I'm saying? Like, we want to be those people who also receive funding from ourselves as well, to build our own community centers, our own rec centers. And on top of that, let's talk about, when we go back to education. Yes, Cassandra, you had an amazing education, but everything that you learn is education. You learning to rap is education. You learning to paint is education. You learning to heal is education. So it's not really separate. It's really about making you a more well-rounded individual and learning all of these things, so that you have many different things to put yourself forth. And then obviously, as Dame was also saying, like, learning how to make money. We live in a capitalist society. We need all these things. We have to attack it from every single angle, really, so that we can invest in the people of Hempstead, in the youth of Hempstead, to help end the mindsets, to help break that intergenerational trauma.
We're not getting any grants.
It literally is a very nuanced solution. So that's all I'm saying.
Go ahead. Well, number one, what's crazy is my son grew up in Freeport and his name is Boogie. You know what I mean? So I was in Long Island. It's crazy. But again, the narrative cannot be waiting for them to give us grants or give us anything. It's how do we do it ourselves. The problem is people cannot look out for other people if they don't know how to look out for themselves. You can't worry about somebody else if you're worrying about yourself. Unless you got bread, you're not worried about giving bread to nobody. You just angry because you don't have bread, and then you're trying to survive. We're always in survival mode. The question is how to get out of survival mode, And the way is for us to support each other, and again, to make, like, I love what Taj was saying. If people think getting an education is going to get you some money, I'd rather get an education and do it legal than sit on a concrete and risk my life every day. It makes logical sense. They just have to be spoken to in the language that they get, not the one that's right. The one that works. It's a shame you got to talk to people a certain way, but it is what it is. I just feel like waiting for people to do things for us is not going to happen. Understanding the problems and then fixing them ourselves is the only plan that works, and it has to be now. It can't happen next week.
Okay,
it has to happen now.
What do you think should be our steps moving forward with the whole latte, way long live latte?
Well, before we get into that, let's back up. I think that what Dame is trying to say is, don't take a longitudinal approach where we're just following one route, but really take is it latitude? Yeah, take a latitude approach, so that we have so many different ways in which we can hit the Hempstead masses, that it's not just one way, it's many ways. But before we get into solution-based, let's just get into latte. We haven't gotten to that yet. Latte Ashley Williams, Taisha is her first name. She's known to her family as Ashley. She's known to her friends as Latte Williams, the 28-year-old woman who recently completed her doula certification, who had an interest in supporting women in the community with health-related experiences such as childbirth, supporting women during times of miscarriages, and supporting women during times of stillbirth. She leaves behind a son who is 7 years old, Noel, her mother, sister, aunt, cousins, who have been working very strategically while mourning and stabilizing Noel's life. On the said night, she was with her boyfriend. Boogie, do you want to talk to us about exactly what happened that night?
Yeah, I got you.
Can I just interrupt? I'm so sorry. Out of respect for the family, I don't want to go too much into detail.
Oh yeah, I know.
No, we don't want.
I know.
Thank you.
We know we've already prepped the entire group not to go into full detail because of the investigation, so we won't.
Another disclaimer. Thank you.
Yep, and it's just for social awareness purposes as well. So go ahead, Boogie.
So I'll make it as simple as possible. It's one of them things like you can't prepare for it. So it was a regular night. Like sometimes I go, cause I don't be in the hood. Like that's just not what I do. You know? So, but I have friends in the hood, just like everybody on this Zoom has friends in the hood. So once in a while you dip back into where you come from, you know. So I go over there, and she drops me off because I don't want her there. Like that's not somewhere that you want your girl, you know. Like wow. So you know you just you go ahead home, babe. You hearing yourself. So that night it just felt weird, but I just kept going. So she called me and was like, "I'm coming to get you. I'm already coming out there. I'm coming now. You know, I'm like, nah, you can stay home. See you. I'll just go home in the Uber." She hangs up the phone, you know. So she just pops up and was like, "I'm here." I'm like, okay, whatever. Yo, I'm out, y'all. You know, I go to talk to her, and it's just, next thing I know, an ignorant person, ignorance just comes by shoot for no reason. Like, shooting at your girl. My girl wasn't the only one that got hit, but there was only 2 girls that got hit. You shooting in a crowd full of women. I talk to older people all the time, and they always tell me, like, listen, when we was growing up, it was a code. No kids, no women. If you do that, you gotta live with the consequences. Nowadays, it's just, if it happens, it happens. And it's messed up that people think like that. Like, if it happens, it happens. Because back in the day, if you go, they're gonna feed you back to who you did that to. You know, and they ain't no, oh, yo, it's a mistake. No, it's no mistake. People saying it's an accident. There's no accident. What you doing it for? Like, what are you doing it for? For what? Like, and they traumatized me. They traumatized the whole family. She got a big family. I didn't even know how big her family was. And I was with this girl every day up until her last, breath. So for me to see her family and see all of them hurt, so that one bullet, you know what I'm saying, could change everybody's life. I cry all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard. Just knowing that the person that you're playing your life with just goes. I don't know if the Zoom is like people. Is it the Zoom on? Am I on?
Yeah, you on. The senator just popped on.
So it's like, imagine planning your life with somebody, and it's like, cause this girl, she wanted to help everybody, including me. I wasn't perfect when I first came. When we first got to our relationship, I was not perfect. The person that I am today is because of her. I had the in-house teacher. People was getting text messages and calls from her. I had the in-house. She made me who I am today. So to see that person get snatched away senselessly, she wasn't there. She wasn't chilling there. She was there for 2 minutes. 2 minutes she was there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and some do gotta change. And like I was saying before, it's not him, that's people in him state. No amount of money can change the ignorance. No amount of money. Grants, loans, you go to all the gyms, all the ignorant people just gonna go to the gym. It's what you gotta attack the people that's in Hempstead. That's what's messing it up. Because Hempstead is not what people make it seem. I'm from there. So Hempstead is not what people make it seem. It's the people inside of Hempstead that's messing it up. You can't give ignorance money because ignorance go on top of ignorance. Look at rappers. They start out ignorant. Then you give them money, they get more ignorant. That's the same people, same way it is in the hood. You just gotta change the people in Hempstead. You gotta attack the people that's doing that in Hempstead. Latte she was perfect. You never made a person that's beautiful inside and out. She was beautiful inside and out. Like, you never get one or the other. You know, you always get one or the other. You gotta dib and dab. But she was beautiful on the outside. She was beautiful on the inside. And like I said, I can bring 100 people in here right now and they'll say the same thing about her. There's nothing bad to go about her. Her spirit will always live on because of how she impacted and helped, affected so many people. And she just started, I watch her go on her path, you know? I watch her start to help people. Like her doula class to help them. I was there with her. She sat in that room for 12 hours, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in videos, in learning. She went to City Park in the city, just so she can get her certifications. She had to do her little class there. I was right there. I watched every step of it. I watched my girl evolve into the woman that she was and she was becoming. I watched that. And it made me so proud to even see a woman really evolve. So I never seen nothing like that. You know, besides my mama, I ain't never seen nobody go that hard to make sure their life would be straight. She loved her son to death. That's all she wanted, to make sure her son was great, you know? And for it to just be snatched away is hard on everybody, yo. Everybody. People who don't even know her, just reading the story, just seeing how genuine, her beautiful smile, beautiful face, structure. She just was a beautiful person, yo. It's so fucked up, yo. So fucked up.
I just want to add to the type of person Latte was, because you know, like, everybody has different relationships with everybody. So the type of person she was to me might not have been the type of person she was to Boogie or anybody else. But I would get random text messages like, "Hey, if you feel a random wave of positive energy, just accept it. It's me. I'm praying for you." Like, randomly, she just knows she gotta pray for me. You know what I'm saying? She just know I need some healing. She just know she needs to send me some love. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of person she was. Her son's father went missing on the day of my birthday, September 26, 2019. 3 days later, she showed up at the doorstep with a cake for my birthday with my picture on it. All pink, my favorite cake, my favorite ice cream cake. Like, she was a selfless person. Her baby father just went missing. And you thinking about me. I'm thinking about you. She was just, that's who she was. Like, she spread love everywhere she went. You know what I'm saying? If I was hurting, she was hurting. If somebody did something to me, she was upset. She felt my pain. She wanted to take my pain from me. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of person she was. Like, it's not right. Like, it's just not right. Like,
I think that it's good to highlight. You brought up that point that Noel's dad is also missing for 11 months now, and they still have not discovered the body. So Noel has no parents. And so that's really what is also affecting all of us, is kind of like, can we have some kind of closure in any direction at this point? Because now we have to watch this 7-year-old boy just grow without having knowledge. And I think the basis of the conversation from the very beginning is he's going to always be great, but children always want to know. Ray, Noel's going to always be good because he has Isis's family and Latte's family supporting him. But all of us, even myself, who was a byproduct of the foster care system, we want to know. We want to know the truth about our parents at one point or another. So if we can bring some kind of closure to Latte, Noel deserves it.
it's not about his future being stabilized, because we've already discussed in this group how we're going to support Noel. It's the point of the fact that every human being at some point in their life wants to know the truth about their parents, right, wrong, and different. And so we have a responsibility as a group and as a team and as the pillars of the community that we represent to try to get some kind of closure to this young boy. Point blank, period. I know Senator Melton is in the room. Before he speaks, let me just state the facts. Saturday, August 1st, 2020, at approximately 12:06 a.m., Latte was seated in her car, parked in front of 79 Martin Luther King Drive in Hempstead, New York. Shots were fired from a white Dodge sedan heading westbound on Martin Luther King Drive, and that's how her life was taken. Crime Stoppers have issued a warrant and a wanted poster. If anyone has any information, they can call 1-800-244-TIPS. There is a $5,000 ransom for any information leading up to the arrest. Before I say that, let me just say, according to neighborhood scouts, your chances of becoming a victim of violence in the town of Hempstead is 1 in 172. 1 in 172 in Hempstead. In New York State alone, your chances of becoming a victim of homicide is 1 in 285. So just look at those numbers real quick so you can see how hot Hempstead technically is. And the effects on the community per se, because I know a lot of the community, they're scared to speak, they're scared to speak up, they're scared to give up information, but they don't understand how much this affects their community. So I want to bring light to how gun violence in general affects communities. And for Hempstead, it lowered the home values in the community. Residents want to relocate, people don't want to buy homes in those areas. When your grandmother or your grandfather is having a heart attack or trips down the steps and it takes the ambulance a long time to come, or it takes police a long time to respond, sorry to say, all those things are a direct impact of how poor the community can be, which then doesn't give the people the urgency and officials sometimes the urgency to help and aid in those communities. So unless you start tackling violence and unless you start tackling gun control, these things are going to affect everyone in Hempstead. So I know Dane brought up the issue of like this whole cultural structure of trauma and sometimes us being conditioned to thinking that we can't and we shouldn't speak up and we shouldn't talk, and the code and the trauma and the street code and this, that, and the other. But it's completely whack. It's a blur. It's a wool being pulled over our eyes because you too, for not saying anything or for not coming forward and speaking about what you probably saw happen on that night, also directly affects you. It affects you with police coming out to support the community in general. At other times, it affects you holistically. It affects you in every regard. No one wants to move to Hempstead anymore. When I was in foster care, I was in a foster home from the ages of about 6 to 12 years old. And I remember riding my bike to Cedar Street Park in Hempstead with no adults, no parents. We rode our bikes to the park because we felt that safe. Today, nobody can ride it. No child can ride their bike to Cedar Street Park alone. Are you crazy? No one can. So, like Cassandra spoke about before, we need to take back Hempstead. We need to make Hempstead what it used to be, because I know for a fact it used to be safe. And we need to look at different solutions to then say, yo, you know what? We got to change our culture. We have to change the way we look at this. Yes, it was an accident. Yes, there's casualties of war, but this is unacceptable. And these are the steps that you make to do that. So I just want to put that out there before Senator Melton, he steps in. He's a senator. Senator Melton, I know you're not in the state of New York, but tonight, if you could just represent senators as a whole, what do you believe from your perspective we can do from a state level? Because I do know for a fact that the state has an obligation to protect and serve the community, or else it actually violates the international human rights. So go ahead and speak on that.
Thank you. First, I appreciate the invite on tonight. My heart goes to the family and friends of Latte. I didn't know her. Stories from you all, and I appreciate you sharing so much about her. Praying for her son. That's true, Melody. I'm not from New York. I'm in Indiana. But the stories I heard Ray Vaughn talk about and the issues that I hear about nationally, right here in my own city, where I grew up, in Erie, Indiana. We're 20, 30 minutes away from Chicago. And in the mid-90s, Gary was labeled the murder capital of America. What they per capita of individuals of less than 100,000. That's not a label that I was proud of. However, I am able to identify and connect with individuals that have grown up and experienced trauma and violence. I've seen it. I think, Taj, you said it so eloquently a couple of Zooms ago that our communities were dealing with post-traumatic slave disorder. And there's so many issues that we've experienced in our personal lives. And Dame, I'm sure you hit on it before I jumped on, that we haven't resolved yet. And that we're personally struggling and dealing with, on top of the suppression and systemic racism that has been plagued us for generations, right? So when Melody asks about what a state should do, absolutely, states have a responsibility. States have a responsibility to educate us, to protect us, and so many other things. But the one thing, before we dive into what the state should do, I think there's a level of responsibility and accountability even within our own communities. In terms of when we see and witness tragedies and we know something and we need to communicate to authorities. I know we have that history of not wanting to quote unquote snitch. But when we're talking about people and innocent lives that have fallen victim to these type of tragedies, people need to speak up. And I've seen it time and time again with death in my family, death in my community, and it's still taking place today. I mentioned the proximity that we are with Chicago. I have friends and family members that are engaged in a lot of those activities. And every day, every week, we're hearing the stories. It's almost to the point where people are becoming desensitized to the trauma. And we all know that as that trauma constantly builds up on the inside of us a lot. And it finds ways to be released. So I don't have a solution, and I don't think we all have a collective or a single solution that what can be done. But I think there are people in communities across the country that are having the same conversation, that have the same passion and desire to change their communities. And the question I ask is, how do we identify and align with those folks and build a masses and build a more collective voice to demand things to happen in our communities? So I just want to be a part of this discussion, and I appreciate the opportunity. And again, this is a journey that we all have to go through, and I just want to be a part of the conversation tonight, so I appreciate it.
Hi, this is Dr. Chris. Can I weigh into what the senator just said? First of all, foremost, my condolences, my thoughts, my prayers go out to Latte's family, to her son, to her loved ones, to her significant other who's on tonight, to the community of Hempstead. I work in Newark. My family lives in Newark, raised in East Orange, talking about New Jersey. So we are Hempstead, right? We are those communities where gun violence has plagued and robbed us of a sense of safety, security, and peace. And so when we're talking about solutions, I've heard a lot of what those solutions are, but I'm going to speak from my lens as a public health physician and a hospital administrator. Gun violence is a public health issue, just like heart disease, just like diabetes, just like congestive heart failure. And I say it that way because we have to think about what are all of the tools in our toolkit that we can use to beat back, to turn back this scourge of gun violence. In Newark, we are a black and brown majority city, right? We come from a beautiful but complex past, right? We had the uprising in '67. Uprising led to progressive and successive years of economic disinvestment, abandonment of our black and brown neighborhoods and communities. Then we went into self-governance. Our first black mayor, Ken Gibson. Fast forward to today, Mayor Raz Baraka. What we need to see are strategies at every level of government, strategies in community, strategies that come from a collective efficacy, right? Self-efficacy is the ability to make an informed choice or decision. Collective efficacy is what we're doing here tonight. So as a hospital, what do we do in Newark? University Hospital. We have a hospital-based violence intervention program. We have interrupters who are either former gangbangers or people who were in the street who come into the hospital when we have a gun violence victim to interrupt perpetuating that vicious cycle, right? So we have street teams in Newark, Newark Community Street Team that goes around in neighborhoods. When we look at this as public health, we can predict where gun violence is likely to break out, like an infection. And that usually is because of interpersonal beefs, interpersonal interactions. And what we saw happen to Latte is when other innocent bystanders get caught up in that vicious web. So in addition to hospitals partnering with community-based institutions to have these HVIPs, or this hospital violence-based program that I described, the city of Newark has distinguished itself. It has established an Office of Violence Prevention, right? So there is a person who will be on point. And again, I want to emphasize that this is self-governance. We are a black and brown majority city. We are coming up with these solutions. We are looking into the evidence and we are putting them into action, right? And so we have an Office of Violence Prevention. This office is brand new. It's going to be led by a woman colleague that I greatly admire and respect. That's going to look at what community-based organizations are at the table. Because where you've had that economic disinvestment, you have to be purposeful in cultivating a sense of togetherness, cultivating a sense of cohesiveness, right? A social fabric, because that has been broken. And until we are able to do that at all those different levels, like having the hospital involved, having the city government involved, having community-based organizations involved, having faith-based organizations involved, having educational systems involved, we're going to still see these plagues that plague our communities and these gaps that lives like Latte get caught in and destroyed by.
Dr. Purnell, let me just say that what you're highlighting is what Melanie spoke to earlier about all the organizations that are in fact in the communities who are doing good work to help to be preventive and strategic. And let me just also highlight that there's a deeper layer to this, Dr. Purnell, because the vehicle in question was, first of all, let me just highlight that Martin Luther King Drive is lit up with cameras. The perpetrators were well aware and still operating.
Right.
So this is a deeper layer. This goes back to what Taj is talking about in regards to it being so deeply rooted that they just don't care. Because of
can I weigh in on that?
Interpersonal violence that they have with one another. That is so deeply layered because Martin Luther King has about 5 cameras in each direction on every single street corner. And everybody in the street knows that. Right. That this was able to happen.
Right. And let me just say this. When you say there's a deeper layer, and when you say that it's important to have community-based organizations around the table, that's only one of the components that I'm talking about. Right.
I'm agreeing with you, but I'm just also highlighting the fact that there's a lot of good work that's also being done, but there's still some kind of disparity because people are aware of the good work that's being done. People are also aware of the tactics that are being put in place by officials
to help reduce these crime rates in these areas, yet it's still happening, which means that there's a deeply rooted thing here. The beef is that deep. The situation, whatever's affecting them, is that profound that everybody knows all these things in that particular area, and they're still willing to act. So I think that this is, again, I think that alongside all the provisions and the programming that they're doing in Newark that Hempstead should adopt, if they haven't already done so, there's something else here happening. And I think that Taj and Dennis and Dane spoke about it earlier, is the culture shift and the lens shift that has to still be necessary to then not bring back our communities. That's secondary. The primary is to bring back empathy. Because people, like you said, self-efficacy, yes, but people are making informed decisions who lack empathy. That's how this happens. So it's like...
Let me weigh in on that, what you just said.
Go ahead.
No behavior happens in a vacuum. Behaviors happen as a root or influenced or encouraged by an environment, right? So an environment cultivates a behavior or a choice. So there is an environment that said is in broad daylight in many of the lives that are snuffed out in North New Jersey. They still can happen in broad daylight, right? I work at a hospital where we just had someone brandish a gun on the corner. in broad daylight, right? So I'm not speaking from an uninformed or naive place, but what I'm saying is we continue to have gaps because we don't understand just how deep disinvestment has been, because when that economic disinvestment has been centuries, when it has been through decades, that takes deliberate, holistic action to undo. Earlier, I heard someone say, talking about the trauma that relates to racism. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Racism operates on a system. There's a structural racism, an institutional racism. There's interpersonal racism, and then there's individualized racism, right? And what does that individualized racism do? That individualized racism allows you to personalize that bias and to think that your life is worth less or someone else's life who will there's no sense of accountability. But when we have that holistic involvement, when I'm talking about the Office of Violence Prevention, it's getting at that. It's getting at the biases that are cultivated through culture, the biases that are cultivated through law, the biases that are cultivated through practices to say, how do we break that? And that's why I say it's a public health issue. Because if I look at how COVID, that pandemic, why are certain people we can look at gun violence and say, why are certain communities at risk for gun violence? It doesn't happen like this everywhere. There are certain determinants or factors that contribute to gun violence plaguing our black and brown, in particular, our black and brown communities where there has been a legacy of economic disinvestment.
Right, and I think that goes back to what Melanie was saying in terms of trying to get funding into these communities to kind of help empower. But then was stopped by Dane by saying, yo, why are we waiting on them? Why are we waiting for funding? Why should we wait for funding? I believe that it should be the latitude approach where it should be both. I think it should be us.
Yeah, and we could have funding. We could have funding, but I mean, all the money in the world is not going to fix this problem if we don't include the people that's engaging in these problems.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can spend all the money you want to the neighborhood, if you don't educate them as far as, okay, how do I deal with myself? How do I deal with somebody else? It don't take no funding for me to go into my neighborhood and have these conversations or do this therapy. This is something that has to happen at a very organic level.
Right.
And when I say that, that's house to house, person to person. This is what it's gonna take.
But Taj,
we can be up here with it, but if we not including the people that's down here with it, it ain't gonna matter.
Taj,
but let me just in the hands of those. It also matters who hands have the money.
But that's,
right? It's not just mattering if you have money. And when I talk about economics, I'm not only talking about financial capital. Right? I'm talking about resources or capital, the ability to build. There's intellectual capital. There's cultural capital. There's emotional capital. So we need all of that, right? We need to go back to the people who are at the source or on the front lines and empower them with resources.
Well,
finance is only one aspect to how to reinvest in their communities. Economic disinvestment is typically
For now, are you saying that ideally it's about getting even some of these gangbangers to the table, or the people who are perpetrating crime to the table, and saying, hey, we want to find a segue to the place to get you the funding through a person of influence that can kind of stop these things?
What I want people to be clear about is the narrative, right? The narrative is always they help us. So even if we can provide a little help, the narrative is that we are doing it despite them. I think the problem with our culture is we keep expecting the oppressor to help, and we keep playing that victim role when we're strong enough to unite and do it ourselves. So this is not going to happen overnight, but the sentiment has to change. Even Obama being a black president did so much for me and my children. It started something, because it meant that at some point that we could be president, because I was taught that we couldn't. It meant a lot. Seeing us help us, even if it's a little, is more than we ever show ever. They never show us doing it for us. We're always asking, and I'm just not an asker. I'm gonna do it. I don't expect you to do it. That's what I'm saying now. I think if you present like, if you don't do it, we do it ourselves. And if we do it ourselves and it works better, we're embarrassing you. That's how they cut a check. And that's the only way I've ever done any business, and it's the only way I've ever been successful. No one's ever given me anything, and no one's ever been able to see my dream until it was tangible. Everyone's always thought I was crazy when I said something different, so I just had to show it work. But the narrative is that we're not waiting. That's my narrative. I'm
not waiting either, and I agree with you. I'm not waiting either.
I wasn't disagreeing with you. I wasn't disagreeing with you.
I know you're not, but
I definitely wasn't disagreeing with you. Trust me.
Newark is a majority black and brown city. We are helping us, right? So we are saying we have a problem. We have a problem with gun violence. What can we do? And to your point, Melody, and to what Taj had said earlier, yes, we have brought diverse people around the table. I represent a hospital, but also at that table, I have a Newark Community Street team. And on that Newark Community Street team, those interrupters, right? Those are people who have come out of street life, who still have connections to street life, who live in the community, who know the lived experience of the community, who have access to funds. They just got some funds in Newark, New Jersey, right? They got access to funds to say, how do we use this money to achieve a greater sense of safety and security in our city? So yes, I think there needs to be diversity in that problem solving, meaning like who the people look like that we envision are coming to save us. They are us, right? And empowering us in all of our different lanes, our artists, right? Because I saw Latte's artwork tonight, empowering our artists, and empowering our thinkers, empower our entrepreneurs, empowering our doers. When I talk about economic disinvestment, I'm talking about communities that have been left or forgotten. Right? And there has been a deliberate lack of cultivation that has allowed the worst elements to proliferate. What I mean by the worst elements is people cannibalizing one another, right? People destroying one another. We can be intentional about changing that narrative. We can be intentional about changing our cities, right? And we don't have to, and we shouldn't have to hear these stories. Because I know about Hempstead from back when I was in college. My best friend was from Hempstead, right? So always talking about how Hempstead was like a little bit of a black Mecca, right? Hempstead. You heard about Hempstead all the time, right? In the same way, we have all of these beautiful cities, all of these beautiful communities that were once beacons, that were once North Stars, right? But when structural racism, systemic racism, the legacy of white supremacy infiltrates, those cities are left desolate. And it's intentional disinvestment that says leave them to themselves. But what we can do is show the power of self-governance. What we can do is show through the power of self-determination. What we can do is show through self-actualization and a collective efficacy to come come together is to say, how do we change the narratives so lives like Latte aren't snatched out, aren't snuffed out? She should be here.
Can I just say one thing? Everything you're saying is brilliant and superhero stuff. I think the problem is they don't showcase when we're doing something like this. And that's what my job is to do. I think everything you said should be described, visualized, and be shown. When someone, a black woman, can run a hospital and be on the front line, articulate things in that way, and also have a solution, why aren't you on CNN? Right? So this is the stories that we must tell. That's the narrative that as a network, and because we have a platform, we have to tell in a professional way so the rest of the world can be infected by it. You know what I'm saying? You know, because that kind of stuff is contagious. I wouldn't know that this was going on in Newark had you not said that, and I know you well. You understand what I mean? So we are doing things for ourselves in a big way, but nobody knows. And a lot of times our superheroes are really humble. But I think sometimes y'all gotta brag. Because everybody on here is a superhero. Because everybody's fighting for others besides themselves. This is the love fight. And it should be showcased, and this looks cool. And this has to be the narrative. That's all. That's what I wanted to say.
Can I ask the doctor something that struck me in terms of the strategic divestment in communities? And that's exactly what we experience in Gary. Melody, when I opened up, you said that in terms of what is the impact of gun violence to communities. When I mentioned the history of Gary and how we have that label as one of the murder capitals, that label and that stigma has stuck with us to this day, almost 30 years ago. And it has impacted in terms of development and people wanting to invest and people wanting to move into our communities and people wanting to risk starting a business. But when I go to the strategic, and I do say strategic, divestment, because as we grew to be a majority minority city that is almost 90% African American, it was a strategic effort to create another neighboring city next to us, so we had the quote-unquote white flight.
That's a celebration of no corona.
So you had the businesses that left our community. You had the property taxpayers and the homeowners that left our city. We went from a city of 120,000 to now we're probably 70,000. So we're half the size that we once were. Then all of those jobs that left, and people are struggling. People are, to some of the words that to the doctor mentioned, kind of praying for the less vulnerable.
Definitely should not have none of them shoes right there.
So the responsibility, and I'm throwing it back again,
right there,
on the state, because when I did my research, and this is one of the reasons why I ran for office, it was the state policies that contributed to all of those factors, to the divestment, giving corporations tax breaks where they're not paying the property taxes to help fund our schools, to help fund our hospitals, to help fund all the facets of a community. So, to your point, Melanie, there's a lot of layers to this. There's the policy layer, there's the grassroots layer that Taj was talking about, the rooftop approach in terms of home to home to home, and it's how do we tie it all together?
Right. No, I agree with you, Melton. And that sort of bring up the points of the effects of gun violence in community in general, which is lower property values and people moving out. All those things add to the digression of the community, all of it. And so some of the solutions that we came up with as a group internally, Latte's friends and family and I, was to start that petition to change Martin Luther King Drive to a co-located street. Because we know Martin Luther King is obviously a prominent figure in our history as well. So we don't want to change the street name, but we want to co-name it Latte's Way. Not just to honor Latte's life, but to use her life as an example and a staple to say, enough is enough. because latte to many people was just probably just a regular person, anybody else that just got hit by a stray bullet. But for us to be able to change that name and to make that change, and especially because it's a very important name that's probably hard to change anyway, then that is letting people know, oh shoot, they're not playing. They were capable to change that name, which means that there's more coming, which means that they're taking a stand. This march that we're having on Sunday at 12 o'clock, starting from where she was murdered, we're just not marching. We're sticking up stickers of latte all over the area that we touch. We're also going to be going into the local businesses and saying, hey, did you know about this story? This is Operation Take Your Community Back. Take this flyer, take this sticker, post it, and it's a separate sticker that says, I'm aware of this story, I'm a homeowner in this community, and I refuse to allow gun violence to still exist. So I am in support of the movement. So that those people who actually bring revenue into the Hempstead community could say, enough is enough as well. So these are small tactics that we're using from a community level so that we can get their revenue involved, so that we can get their businesses involved, so that we can get their awareness involved, which then adds to the influence of the community to slowly take it back. So what's your position on that? And Jamie can provide feedback to you as well.
Well, the thing about Gary, Indiana, there's a lot of history there. That was where and I'm sure, the senator could tell you, the first black mayor happened, and then all the white people left. And then that's, no more money, everybody starts fighting each other. That seemed strategic.
Right.
So the thing that I think is, again, I like to lead and show an example of what we can do. And, Indiana is a gold mine for that. The whole city is empty right now because everybody left. Trade, all kinds of things coming in and out of the world can come through there. And, this is what I've been trying to talk about is if there is a place, let's just make our own city, do our own thing and fund it ourselves. I don't need the government's money. They usually get it from somebody else anyway. But I know if we have a plan, money has never been the issue. And we have a plan. We've talked about the history of religion. We've talked about we've talked about the politics and how to pass laws. We've talked about how to reapproach education. We've talked about how to reapproach therapy. But to me, at the end of the day, economic empowerment is everything. When everybody's rich, nobody wants to shoot. Period. You grumpy when you broke. You grumpy when you worry. You start blaming people for your problems when you have problems that usually stem from not being able to pay a bill or being jealous of somebody having more than you have. Usually somebody of your own color. So we could show that sticking together, that we could build the city without anybody. I think it's just important that the independence, because America is a great place if you do what you got to do. If you wait to be given, America's a nightmare. But I know I didn't go to school. I got my GED, and I've been able to provide for my children, which is all this is for. Not even me. I'm going to always be all right. So investing in our children's mind, investing in their perspective on things and their narrative, them seeing us do it, then they know that we're the plug and that we need to protect each other. And that's the problem. We think they're the plug and they're not. They're the controller that has been very strategic about taking our brain and making us think we're number two when we're the muscle and the brain. And everybody on this panel has displayed that. We can do anything we want to do together. We do not need them. All we need is us. We can't be jealous of us. The thing I think that makes everyone on here different is we're happy when we see each other win. A win for you is a win for me. I'm not jealous of you, or I don't think you got the plug. I know you're going to share the plug. But what do we do when we get the plug? Generally, protect it, and then we fight and protect them for it. And then bend the knee behind a closed door, and then act tough in front of everybody else. That's the narrative that has to stop. In order for there to be a change, there has to be a disruption. It don't mean break a glass. It just means we have the ability to pay for things. We have the ability to organize and make people accountable, because bottom line is whoever did this, they hot. Now that we all watching right now. And people need to know if you do something stupid, you're going to get everybody, your whole crew, you ain't getting no more money. You're going to get hot. Period. And that's what we do. We make people that do wrong stuff, we make them hot. That's what networks do. We have the power to do that. But we're not coming from a place of distraction. We're coming from a place of focus. We're not trying to say, give you entertainment for your, to escape your problems. We're giving you solutions so you don't have any problems and support. And that's what the whole agenda is. So we have plans. And even my man, even though it sounds crazy, but he wants to help so bad, he wants to run for president, even though, whether it's wrong or right or the timing is wrong, the agenda is still, I got money, I want to help. We all want to help. We superheroes. We all deserve to live very well. And I don't care what anybody says. You need money to make sure your children don't struggle. Period. You need money to make sure the people that took care of you can get off so they don't have to worry about you. Here, let me buy you a house. Nothing feels better than that. And that's the dream I see. I see peace. I look at peace every day. I hear about war. But my life is peaceful. But I still feel it. Like I'm feeling pain behind this. I don't want to feel this no more. And I know y'all don't want to feel this. This should not be normal. The reason why we're talking about it is it happens too many times. It just happened real close to home this time. But it's always close to home when it's one of us. And we got to have pride in that. And that's just how I feel, And we are doing things in the moment. And like Senator, you can talk about it if you want.
So, James, a lot of your solutions are more like 5-year plans too, in order to really get it off the ground.
No, we could do things tomorrow. One of my plans is what we just did right now. My second plan is, let's do the doc. We can do that now. We can write a script now. Everything, the Great Wall of China was built in 2,000 years. Nothing worth anything is going to happen fast. And 5 years is relatively quick, based on how long we've been oppressed. It's nothing.
I agree. I think, and I've been writing some notes down, everyone is kind of coming to the same place right now where we want to discuss some solutions. And I think, obviously, first things first, this in and of itself is part of the solution. The fact that we're sitting down in a town hall meeting, we have collective minds together from many different facets and walks and paths of life that actually are particularly necessary in the many different ways we're going to do this, right? We have someone in here from public health. We have artists. We have people who have the finances. We have a senator in here. We have a mental health therapist in here. We have a social worker in here. We have 3 people from the community, from that particular community in here. So basically,
we got a bishop in here too, a bishop.
The foundation right now for what needs to happen next. So I think my question is, when's the next meeting?
We meet every day. We talk every day. We talk every day.
I mean, I don't have people every day, Dane.
No, what I'm saying is, you can get in on the call. You can call me if you want. But every day we talk. Every day we plan and we activate. A lot of people talk, but the reason why I take pride in this crew, because we about that action. We're not the talkers. You see, any one of us, you know what I mean? But, we're just giving it to Dr. Chris. They done. You know what I mean? Period. But we about doing things and supporting it with facts.
And I agree. I think what I'm trying to get at now is how are we going to be more specific in the organization?
No,
right?
just get with us. Keep up. We doing it.
And second and then third.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Get with us.
I'm here.
What I'm saying is we could get you involved. So if you want to be involved, if that's what you're asking, because it's not like this is the first meeting. This is our 50th meeting. You know what I'm saying? This is our 100th meeting. Since quarantine is Zoom. We took a break from Zoom just to go do some stuff and make movies and go save the world real fast. But we've been doing this. We have a plan. You want to get down and become an octopus leg of the plan, please. But right now,
I think that's what most of us are in here, including my sister Cassandra Williams, she herself is like, okay, well now I'm starting a not-for-profit because I'm tired of the shit. You get what I'm saying? So we're all in here particularly because we would like to
be a part of the action now, right?
You're already a part of it. You down.
Let's
I think being part of the action. One thing about this group that I can say, is that it's kind of like forming like Voltrons. Like once we lead these groups, we go and fulfill these purposes. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you bring to the table, whatever Bishop, Dane, Dr. Purnell, Dennis, Melody, Ray, Eddie, Senator, everybody that's on here right now. You know what I mean? ISIS. I don't know if I'm missing somebody, but I can only see what's in front of me. But once we leave here, again, you gotta be about that action. Like whatever I bring to the table, I go do that. Like when I leave here. You know what I mean? And I think bringing those efforts together, once we come to the table, okay, well, what ideas you got? What have you done? What have we done? I think that's how we get this ball rolling. Because at the end of the day, I say this all the time. I'm working. This is going to take a long time to do, like Dane said, and we have to look at this in a proper perspective. I'm not necessarily working for my generation. If I see it, if I live to see the change that I'm working towards, that's great.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, that don't mean nothing to me. I don't need to see this change in my lifetime, but I know we got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? For the youth and the future and the people that's coming, because it took us hundreds of years to get into this situation.
Bro, let me. Hey, Taj. Hey, Taj, check it out.
Yeah.
I've been preaching independence. I've been saying the same exact thing I'm saying for 25 straight years since I've been an adult. I've watched what the effect. That's why I started smoking weed. I've been waiting for this moment. Rewind from before I went gray saying this stuff. It's worth it. I watched the change. 5 years is nothing. It's zero. Trust me, the big fight is over. Mentality is there. This revolution, I've been fighting it for my whole life on my own. Calling out white people by name and not the. This is nothing new for me. That's why I'm so happy to have a bunch of people that's about that action, intellectuals that can support everything with fact, not emotion, but get emotional about the facts. I love that.
So, with that being said, I gotta log off in a second. I hate to leave early, but I just want to thank Melanie for having me on here.
We're gonna wrap it up.
You know what I'm saying? But rest in peace to Latte and everybody that again has succumbed to this this violence and all these tragic events. But again, thank y'all. I enjoyed the conversation. I think this is a big step forward. I hope that we can continue this individually and as a collective, so we can actually make some movements out here and really get to that action. So blessings to y'all. Dame, I'm gonna see you in a little while.
Thank you, bro. We about to go do some therapy right after this, and then I'm gonna go rock out. That's my therapy. I'm gonna play some music.
Salute to everybody, man. I'm gonna see y'all in a minute. Blessings.
Thank you. All right, so let's start this wrapped up call. So the next 3 steps should be exactly what? What do you guys think as a collective? I mean, I have my 2 cents, but I want to hear from the people first.
Well, for me, it's the documentary, the movie, and I think when you do the march, please cover it, and so I could post up. You can. Yeah. I wish I could make it where you could go live. Maybe I can make it where you could go live from my phone. Because we live now. You know what I mean? But I think bringing awareness brings accountability, and I want to be a part of that. And I'm a man of my word. So if we said we're going to do the movie and we said we're going to do the doc, the only way it's not going to happen if y'all don't show up. But I'm here. I take pride in that, and the strength that y'all showing is admirable, and it should be shown, because this is the way you deal with a situation. The family is uniting. They're putting together a plan, and they're also making sure that this doesn't go without it being, any accountability. And y'all look beautiful. And Boogie, bro, you standing up like a real man, and I can imagine, but I can't imagine. You know what I mean? My thing happened 20 years ago, and you'll never forget it, but you will learn to live with it, and it will get easier. You know what I mean? But everybody here, take time for yourself at some point and get some sleep as well. But I love all of y'all, and now I feel like y'all my family, and I don't, that's just how I am, and I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else want to speak?
Yeah, I'm about to log off soon. I just want to thank everybody. It's greatly appreciated. Me and the rest of her friends that I'm close with, we're all still in a state of shock. Every day we wake up, we can't believe she's still not here. But everything that you guys are helping us do is all a part of our healing process. And I just thank y'all so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Cassie. Boogie?
Yeah, I just want to say I want to appreciate everybody that came out, so we do need change, and Dame saying a documentary and movie, that's all she wanted, because when she see that, she gonna see change, and literally that's all I could think. I can't think of nothing else but she just wanted to help, like she just wanted help. She wanted change. That's all she, she started, I don't know if Melanie was the one that helped her do it, but she was starting her own nonprofit. I still got the clothes that she wanted to donate. She donated to shelter. She wanted to open her own shelter. You know what I'm saying? That's what she wanted to do. She just wanted change. And this is why her name can't go in vain. We need to change. If it's only one thing that we change that affect everybody out here, she'll be proud, because that's all she wanted to do. She wanted to help and she wanted to change. So I just want to thank Dane for coming. I want to thank everybody for coming. Bishop, everybody, Cassandra, Melody, for putting us in this position to even have this. Because we were stagnant. We started moving. Everything is moving now. And we ain't going to let her go on vain, man. We going to change. We going to make this change. We going to stomp this pavement, make sure that we get to it,
Yo, Boogie, and I applaud you for stepping up and saying that, it's not Hempstead. You know what I'm saying? It's that the change is within the people. And that's a big move on your part, because right now, that, individuals committed this crime, and not Hempstead himself, bro. And, I went and spent 2 years at Hofstra University. You know what I'm saying? So I understand Hempstead, and I know what it's about. And Hempstead's been a problem since I was in 91, 92. It's been a problem for a minute. You know what I'm saying? So for you to be able to say, let's take a closer look at the people rather than Hempstead is a big move on your part. You know what I mean?
Hempstead is a label. That's what it is. It's a label.
And one of the things I wanted to say to Cassandra before she left, I'm sorry she left, because notice what she said, going back, just real brief about education. She left one place that had a great education. She didn't have any problems, but she went to another community like, Wyandanch that had problems. And look how quickly the atmosphere changed, the community changed, and things like that. So I think what Melody is talking about with all of us is being able to kind of put the pieces together and understand that collectively the change that we're talking about can happen. But I can tell you right now, the one thing that happens is that we spend the majority of our time in schools when we're growing up. If we can do a better job of kind of really instilling those things, instilling those conversations with people. Because remember, a dude who decides to pull a trigger in the middle of, in the middle of the street or with innocent bystanders, there's something wrong in terms of the critical thinking aspect of that you're not even thinking about the consequences. The only thing you saw was the op. You saw who you wanted to get, but you didn't see the lives that were destroyed because of it. Every one of y'all, your families, her friends, their families and friends, everybody's destroyed off of one person's irrational decision to pull a trigger. So I am going to always still hold schools and school leaders and principals and teachers and all that. I am going to hold them to a high standard by saying, let's continue to fight to get those things back in our schools, get back those after-school programs, get back those community centers, get those things going, as it once was. Because, again, it wasn't always this way. It wasn't always this way. We had things, and because of funding, we know that those things have kind of dried up a bit. But I'm really happy to hear that, you know, you're willing to say, you know what, I'm not giving up on my city. I'm not giving up on Hempstead. And you know what, once we solve this problem, we're going to continue to do other things. So I definitely applaud you for that, bro.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your feedback, Dennis. Does that mean that you're going to be starting by the way, I went to California Avenue, door to Hofstra, so you know, really
Same.
And Dr. Purnell, I just bought property next door to door, so I'm in your town. What's up? And Bishop, I'm right next to you guys. What's up? Y'all too close for us not to connect, but I'm real close to you guys. But
always close to us. You got things to do.
But Dennis, would you be open to starting an OSG camp in the Hofstra community as part of your solutions? And maybe we can have a conversation of what that looks like and staple it Latte's way, you know, the whole movement, and see how we can get involved with that.
Yo, Melody, you got a family for life here. Anything that I need, we good, and we're gonna help out and stuff like that. And again, you know, I am somewhat impartial now to Boog, you know, and I want to make sure that his legacy continues to grow and he continues to be the advocate that I see in his eyes. So anything that y'all need from us, we definitely gonna be there to support that. And you know, I do want us to become more mindful of what's going on in the community by way of community centers and community support. But if for nothing else, let's try to do our own thing, like Dame said. Even if it's just one school or if it's one community center at a time. We might not be able to fix it all, you know, in the next year or so. But if we can get one and we can start saving lives that way, I'm all down for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. You all have, I haven't met Latte, but from the way you described her, I know key things about her, and those things that meant a lot to her. You should look at those as vehicles to push change, right? If she had an interest in maternal health or maternal issues, doulas. If she had an interest in art, if she had an interest in those who had certain needs, whether they were homeless or whether they were down on their luck in the sense of an economic sense, empower those type of opportunities in her name and in her memory, right? I had a dear college friend whose mother was stolen by gun violence in Newark, right? And she's a doctor. She's living in Texas now. And her mom, her older age of life, gets shot down. And, you know, that's traumatic. But she's like, what can I do to keep my mother's spirit in memory? She put scholarship funds. She invested in things that her mother cared about. She made sure those groups that were close to her mom had funds and access to funds or had access to resources. So if I can share resources, meaning, things that we've done in the city of Newark, whether it's on the hospital side, you can partner with a local healthcare center, because HVIPs, hospital-based violence intervention programs, are a part of the solution, right? They partner with community-based organizations and street teams to really get at why the cycles of violence keep being perpetuated. I was working at Brookdale, Brookdale had a similar program in their hospital. What that community has been ravaged with violence. And so not one thing is going to solve it, but all of this collectively is going to help turn it in the right direction. So, Mr. Dash knows how to get me, Bishop knows how to get me, Melody, you can get me. Whatever I can share and help build to think through, solution through, I'm about that.
Thank you, Dr. Purnell. And I think that your point is well taken in terms of leaving a legacy through what is doing in terms of certification. And I think that goes back to what Dane was speaking towards in terms of getting trades and things that kids are actually interested in doing into the community. A lot of people don't know about doula certification. A lot of people don't know that they can pick up trades, that they can go and get their GED and that done with school earlier so they can focus on capitalism, so forth and so on. So that is duly noted, because you can be a doula.
Why you got to call it capitalism?
What's up, Dave?
Why is capitalism? I feel a negative connotation with trying to get money.
I mean, because that's really what it is.
Nah, I call it wanting to spoil my children.
Yeah, but we live in a capitalist society. society. So those finances are based on a capitalist economy and a capitalist economic system.
But I just feel like capitalism comes with greedy. Because if you're localizing your production and you're providing jobs while you make money and everybody's eating, is that considered capitalism?
No, that would be considered socialism.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. Let's put the right narrative.
Has a negative. There's nothing wrong with being capitalistic in your own right. I think we got to also then break that mold too, to know that it's okay to have that perspective on things. Because it goes back to what you're saying. If we have a kid interested in school but is interested in doing mechanics and can make a living and feed their single mom doing that, then why not?
How can I help somebody that needs help that doesn't have it if I ain't got it? How can I help? That's the problem, is that people, we're so dependent.
That everyone has that they can offer is just time. And I think we also need to disrupt that narrative that if I have nothing, I can help no one. When you have yourself, you have love, you have compassion, you have empathy. I find that when I volunteer with youth, that in and of itself is so important to them, that when I just spend time, or when I volunteer with the geriatric population, with older people, time spent and relating and bonding to people is actually also very much healing as well.
And it'll feel a lot better if y'all was getting money while y'all was hanging out.
Absolutely.
It always feels good when you get money. You know what I mean?
You need the organizations where you teach them how to make money. You need the organizations where
get money with them. Get money with them.
And not emotionally.
Hit them with a pack of some T-shirts. Just be the plug. They love you. You give a kid opportunity to get some money, he loves you. I promise you that.
Oh, absolutely. Let me just give
not capital, just to keep them off the street.
Statement.
Huh?
I just want to say thank you, Dame. Thank you, Melody. Cassandra left, but I'm so proud of her. Boogie. Everyone else here, it's so inspiring to be a part of a conversation where we're readily organizing and discussing solutions to issues that affect our people. It's been something that I think is inspiring to me, and it's something that I want to be able to do in every single asset and facet of my life. So I thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I look forward to continuing to work with each and every one of you, and in any and every regard, in that, and lifting up Black and brown stories and people in all facets of our lives.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so my 3 contributions is going to be to kind of get the focal points of the documentary, continue to spearhead the march, and see what we can do with that street name. Those are my 3 commitments. All right. Anybody else want to speak before we close? Then you've done
me.
Oh, Senator Melton.
ISIS.
Nice, yes.
ISIS.
So I wanted to piggyback off of when Boogie was speaking. Ashley and I, another one of our cousins, and her sister D'Angelo, we actually started a nonprofit called Humble Habits Company, and this was curated by Ashley originally. She brought the idea to me and my cousin Aria, and
by the way, is Latte. The family calls her Ashley. But go ahead.
So we started this company called Humble Habits, and I just wanted to read to everyone the articles of incorporation and what she wrote before, obviously, her passing. So she wrote, Humble Habits Co. is an organization developed to raise funds to aid children whom are ill, disabled, and fostered. There are children all over the world that are struggling to fight their greatest battles with little to no support. It is Humble Habits' reverence to assist those children in need. We not only support our children, but we clothe them in our apparel, sending a message to always remain humble and make humility a habit for our future. And under that, she quoted, "A better me is a better you." So I just wanted to announce how impactful she was, and like Boogie said, this is all she wanted to do. This is all she wanted to do. We had a group chat. She'd blow up our phones all the time. We would collect clothes. We were donating them, and etc. So thank you, because this really is the path and the trajectory of where she wanted to go. This is her name, this is how our family is, and her spirit will forever live. Her shell is not here, but I'm telling you, she's an amazing person. We've heard that so many times, but that's my blood, that's my girl, you know, like that's a part of me. That's why when I say I don't know how I can do this without her, it's because, again, I never thought of it. I never thought of losing such a crucial part of me. So thank you for really focusing and understanding and trying to understand who she is and making it work and visualizing it. It's so beautiful, and I'm very appreciative.
Thank you. Senator Melton.
Just thank you for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. Allow me to learn about Latte. Whatever I can do to help share her story, her legacy, just let me. Every time I get a chance to get with this group, and it inspires me every single day. It encourages me to work extremely hard for my community, but also look at see what can I do to help. I love you all. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. If there's anything I can do to assist in your efforts, and just talking to with other elected officials in your community or in your state, and giving you ideas on policy, giving you ideas on grassroots organizing. I'm more than happy to help, but consider it family, like Dennis said.
Bishop.
Once again, I'm beyond pleased to be here. The last thing I ministered on Wednesday was what energy you bring into the table. The scripture says faith without work is, that word work is the Greek word ergon, where we get the English word energy. So faith without energy is dead. Then afterwards, I had a phone call with Mr. Dash and Senator Eddie, and there was Mr. Dash talking about that same energy. I believe in miracles, but when we read the text, when we read the scriptures, Christ only performed miracles when there was positive energy. When there was not positive energy, he said there he could do no a great miracle, a great work. That being true, I believe there's enough energy to bring nothing but positivity. I believe in change. I honestly do believe there are enough black billionaires to bring positivity. And I believe the people here in this conference, I believe you're going to be used to bring some of those black billionaires to the table so we can bring a real and lasting change. We're going to bring some disruption, but within that disruption, we're going to bring some healing and some truth and some love and change. Once again, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to work.
Thank you, Bishop. I think we've all spoken tonight. Dr. Purnell, you closed? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, I closed. Yes.
Okay. So Dan, close us out.
You know, again, within a tragedy, there always has to be some positive. There always has to be some learning, or it goes in vain. And, you know, not to be corny, it's always the darkest before the dawn. And, you know, we're going to learn from this. And because of the people that are on this panel and the energy that we have, like everyone has been saying in the bishop, this is going to become some kind of a light in this dark. And we'll find it, you know, and it will happen. And just knowing that when one of us has any kind of an issue that impacts us, we all will be there in a second, in a phone call, to make whatever's wrong right. So I appreciate everyone for always showing up, and this whole family for being so strong, and also being so fearless about telling your story and open about how it's hitting you in real time, you know, and showing people how they need to react when something like this happens. And again, I love that it's all of us helping each other. We don't need nobody. But you know, you have a new family. You know what I mean? So we're here, and we appreciate y'all, and we love y'all. You know.
Thank you. So we will continue to remain connected, and we're going to make sure that we kind of go back to our drawing boards with our commitment group very soon. I'll keep you posted on the mark. The time now is 9:02 Eastern Standard Time, and this town hall meeting is officially closed. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Save the
family.
fight, make sure it goes on there.
Keep your head
All right,
up.
y'all. Thank you. Love y'all.
Keep your head up, Isis.
Definitely good energy from us.
Bye. Boogie, Isis, condolences again. See you guys on Sunday.
All right,
Dr. Chris.
Good about.
Hold on, it's the show, buddy. All right, we go right to dinner. Everybody's waiting. I got my baby. Look at 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 my baby. You know what I mean? Come on, you can sit at the table.
All right, come on.
All right.